Have you ever just stopped and wondered, what is this all about? It's a question we've all asked at some point, right? Well, today, we're diving into the incredible story of one man who dedicated his entire life to finding an answer. We're talking about the journey of Siddhartha Gautama, the man who would become the Buddha.
And it all really boils down to this one huge question. Why is there so much suffering in life? Why do we have to deal with pain and loss and all the hard stuff? For this man, this wasn't just some philosophical thought experiment. Nope. It was the mystery that would kickstart one of the most amazing transformations in human history.
And get this, the person who decided to tackle this massive question wasn't some god or a figure from a myth. He was a real person. A prince, actually, named Siddhartha Gautama. And he was living this life of, just total luxury. But he just couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong with the world outside his palace walls.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Picture this, inside the walls of the Sakya Kingdom Palace. This is where we meet young Prince Siddhartha. His life is, it's perfect. He's got every luxury you can imagine, and he's completely protected from anything ugly or difficult about the real world.
But here's the thing. Even in what was basically a gilded cage, something just wasn't right for him. He had it all, right? Everything a person could ever dream of. But his mind was restless. It just kept coming back to that huge, nagging question about suffering, a question his perfect sheltered life had absolutely no answers for. Okay, so Siddhartha's perfectly curated world, it's about to get completely turned upside down. He makes a choice to go outside the palace walls for the very first time. And what he's about to see, it's going to change not only his life, but the course of history, forever. So out in the real world, he comes across 4 sights that just hit him like a ton of bricks. They show him the raw, unfiltered truth of what it means to be human. First, he sees an old man, and for the first time he understands aging. Then, he sees a sick person, and bam, the reality of illness. Then, a dead body, confronting him with the fact that life ends. And finally, the 4th sight, an ascetic, a holy man who had given up everything to find some kind of answer. These weren't just things he saw, they were total revelations that completely shattered his entire understanding of the world. After that, there was just no going back. He couldn't return to his comfortable palace life, not anymore. The questions in his head were screaming now, and the reality he just witnessed was way too powerful to ignore. So he makes this absolutely radical decision. He's going to leave it all behind and set out to find an answer, a way to end all this suffering. And just think about the sheer weight of that choice for a second. He was only 29 years old, and he walks away from his title, his palace, his wife, and his brand new baby son. This was not just some intellectual exercise for him. This was a massive, deeply personal sacrifice. Now, his journey wasn't some straight shot to the answer. Far from it. First, he went to the complete opposite extreme. He became an ascetic, practicing intense self-denial, barely eating. But he quickly figured out that punishing his body wasn't freeing his mind. So he had this huge realization. The extreme luxury of his old life and this new extreme hardship, they were both dead ends. The answer wasn't in either of them. So after ditching both of those extremes, he found something else, something he called the middle way. It was a path of balance. He travels to a place called Bodh Gaya, finds a big Bodhi tree and sits down underneath it. And he makes a vow to himself. I am not getting up from this spot until I find the truth. And right there, in this state of deep, deep meditation, he finally got it. He had a breakthrough. He achieved enlightenment. And in that one moment, Prince Siddhartha ceased to exist. He had become the Buddha, which literally means the awakened one. He was now someone who is completely, fully awake to how things really are.
So what do you do when you've basically figured out the answer to life's biggest question? Well, the Buddha didn't just keep it to himself and retreat from the world. Nope. He decided he had to share what he'd found. He wanted to, as they say, turn the wheel of the Dharma, to set this universal truth in motion for everyone. So he traveled to a place called the Deer Park in Sarnath, And there, he found the 5 guys who'd been his buddies back when he was trying out that extreme ascetic life. And it was right there, to this small group of, let's be honest, probably pretty skeptical monks, that he gave his very first teaching.
And he broke down his huge discovery into 4 really clear and simple ideas. We know them today as the 4 Noble Truths. Okay, so number 1, suffering is a real part of life. Number 2, it doesn't just happen. It has a cause, our own cravings and attachments. Number 3, the good news, it's possible to end suffering. And number 4, there's a specific path to do it. It's kind of like a doctor's diagnosis. Here's the problem, here's what's causing it, here's the confirmation that you can get better, and here's the prescription.
And that prescription? It's this, the Eightfold Path. This is the how-to. It's a practical guide for how to actually live your life, made up of 8 connected parts that cover everything from wisdom and how you act to how you train your mind. And this wasn't like a list of commandments from on high. It was a practical roadmap that anyone, and I mean anyone, could use to find their own awakening.
So after that first teaching, the Buddha basically spent the rest of his life on the road. For decades, he just walked from village to village, teaching anyone who would listen. Didn't matter if you were a king or a farmer, a scholar or a little kid. He taught everyone with this incredible, boundless compassion.
And his core message was actually super simple and direct. It was all about this. Let go of that inner stuff like greed and hatred. Instead, practice compassion and nonviolence toward everyone. And understand that deep down, all beings are equal. Pretty powerful, right? He taught like this for almost 50 years. Then, at 80 years old, in a place called Kushinagar, he knew his time was coming to an end. So he gathered his followers around him one last time to give them his final, and maybe his most important piece of advice. Now, you know what he didn't do? He didn't name a new leader. He didn't ask anyone to just blindly believe what he said. Instead, he left them with these simple but wow, incredibly profound words. Appa Dipo Bhava, which means be your own light. He was telling them, don't rely on me, don't rely on any book or teacher. Rely on yourselves. Look inward. It was this amazing, final, empowering message about being self-reliant. And so, the story of this prince who went from a palace to total enlightenment, it ends with a message that rings just as true for us today. It's not just a cool story to listen to, it's a question for us to live by. If you are to be your own light, then the real question is, what path are you going to illuminate?